Hey everyone, welcome back to Simply Neutral. Today I will be playing around with acrylic paint and a little bit of gouache. I bought these panels from Blick last year and I didn't like what I initially painted. It's been sitting in my closet for months, and with all this time at home, I decided to start off fresh. Back in college, acrylic paint was my primary medium of choice. I used acrylic paint for about 3 or 4 years until I started using watercolor consistently. It's been a while since I've worked with acrylic and I wanted to rekindle my love for it. I used to have a whole range of colors with my acrylic paint like years ago, but as you saw, I only have primary colors to work with now. Although it takes a little bit longer to get the color that I desire, I wanted to refresh my memory with color theory. I must admit, I'm a bit forgetful with what colors to mix, especially when it comes to finding, the right skin tone. And honestly, I don't really have the patience for it. It was around 4 p.m. when I filmed this video, and I wanted to challenge myself to complete this painting before the sunset. So I had about 2.5 hours to complete it, and I looked for an image on Pinterest to reference from, which is what I usually do. And, I'm really drawn to beautifully curated still life photography. Anything that displays flowers, food, fabric, and random found objects to create a really beautiful modern image. I also really like the photos where there's someone's hand holding one of the objects or adding motion with pouring milk into a glass. There's just something about it. I just have a really soft spot for still life photography. As you may all know, I'm a very, very detail-oriented artist. I'm quite meticulous with my illustrations, and a lot of my work back in college was focused on photorealism. And even with the work that I do now with gouache, it still has a very realistic style to it. But I wanted to try something different for this painting. So I thought about some of the paintings I'd see in museums. A particular art movement that I'm really fascinated with is Impressionism, which was developed in the late 1800s. Artists like Claude Monet, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, and Edgar Degas, just to name a few. And Impressionism steered away from realistic depiction and focused on their own impression on the world as they saw it. Imperfect and loose brushstrokes, which I find really beautiful, and just creating an unconventional perspective with no attention to symmetry and clarity of form. Many Impressionist artists did a lot of their paintings outdoors, like plein air, and capturing momentary public scenes such as cabarets, cafes, and just being out in nature. And now that I think about it, urban sketch is very much like Impressionism, depicting life through the artist's perspective in their own creative style within a fleeting moment. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I was really drawn to Impressionism. Although I was painting from reference, I wanted to get a sense of that feeling as I worked with the natural light through my window, and painting within a certain time frame. I wasn't so much concerned with the time, I was just getting a little frustrated with mixing the paints. Earlier when I was trying to get a brown shade for the background, it just started to look muddy and it really bothered me. So I decided to go for a different color, and I came up with this really pretty deep, robin's egg blue shade. One thing that I always have a problem with acrylic paint is when I've mixed paint to create a certain color, I usually don't have enough to cover the area that I need to. So when I have to go back and mix to get that specific color, I forget what colors I mixed together to get that shade, and it's a little frustrating for me. I think the hardest part for me, which I usually don't have a problem with when painting with watercolor or gouache, is the bread. I'm usually really good with, painting food and getting the right colors, but With my acrylic paint, I had a difficult time mixing the paint to get the perfect shade of brown and burnt sienna. So after much frustration, I decided to bust out my Holbein acrylic gouache, and it turned out okay. If I had more time to work on the painting, I would have fixed it up, but I told myself to just let go of trying to perfect everything. You know, that whole point of painting this was to not focus on the details and just to play around with the brush strokes. Of course, I had many thoughts in my head once I finished painting it, like, oh, I should add more shadows, or I should go back and add a little bit more pink to the flowers, you know, stuff like that. And when I had those thoughts rushing through my mind, I immediately put the brushes down, I stepped back, and I just appreciated the paintings for what it was. You know, with its imperfections, there's still so much beauty within it, and I think that's so beautiful. Overall, I really liked how the painting turned out. You know, the first painting I did last year, I used the Holbein acrylic gouache for the first time. You know, I didn't really know how to work with it, and I didn't like how it looked on the panel. So I'm really glad that I decided to paint over it with acrylic paint because I think it looks so much better. You know, the texture and the thickness of the paint pairs well with the panel, and I'm actually really excited to paint more on this particular surface. So I actually have a couple more panels in different sizes. They're a bit more small, I think. But if you want to see more videos like this one, just like this video and or comment letting me know. Anyway, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe down below and click on that notification bell so that you stay updated with all my future videos. As always, I hope you all are staying safe, live simply, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!